What's going on, guys? Bladezilla here, and today we're taking a look at another cool one from Shirogorov. This is the Stellar Bronze. So you will have seen by now I've done a number of Stellar videos, everything from production M390 right up through their custom division line, the Stellaris, the Stellar custom division as well, Sprint Run, the full custom Stellar, Stellar Blue. I've done a lot of different Stellar videos at this point, so if you are new to the channel, just search under my playlists or page, just search Stellar and you'll probably see quite a bit of them. This is a new color, recently launched about, well, by the time of filming this, who knows, maybe a week ago, week and a half ago, and by the time you're watching this, not sure, but right now it is April 2024. So this particular one we're going to go over today. We're going to talk about it, do some comparisons with some other knives, and you know, the usual. So sit back, relax. It's going to be casual, like it always is. Grab a coffee, grab a beer, whatever. As a reminder, check out my website, bladezilla.ca, where a lot of the knives featured on this channel are available. So there you go. I just grabbed a couple new, what are these ones? The Ursus R1Ps, so blue and bronze as those as well, so that's pretty cool. Looks like they're kind of going that direction, doing a lot of the blues and bronzes, which, you know, to be honest, makes a lot of sense. But that's not what we're talking about today. We're talking about this gorgeous little beast. So don't know how long it's going to be. I'm actually in the middle of an intermission with a Leafs game that's on right now. Fun fact. So we'll try to make this as soon as I can, but 20 minutes or so probably. Let's get started on this. If it's your first time looking at a Stellar, may as well zoom in just a smidge. Let's take a look at some measurements. So we are coming in at, what are we looking at? 8 1/4, roughly. 8 1/4, with a blade length of 3 5/8 to the end of the grind. So, you know, good size. Handle, what was it? 5, 4 1/4. 4.5, handle 4.5, about that. So really good EDC size. In terms of what I would compare it with in the non-Shiro world, well, I do have a couple of the Sebenzas here somewhere hiding. So let's grab the small and the large just to kind of show what we're working with. That is the small, and it's leaned at a really weird angle, and that is a large. So I would kind of put it more in the large Sebenza size, almost identical, to be honest, if we're looking at them. Just for reference, I know people always ask, well, how big is the Stellar? How big is the Neon? How big is an F95 or Quantum, etc.? So the Stellar, very, very similar. If you like the large Sebenza, this will be a very natural fit for you. In terms of the Shirogorov lineup itself, well, we've got some Quantums here. There's a Monkey Edge Frag, single row bearing Quantum, and I've got a Neon hiding somewhere here, which is the smallest knife that Shirogorov currently makes. So there's your 3 sizes. There's also a 111, which is a size up from these guys, but keep in mind, they're kind of difficult to find lately. Anyway, but you kind of have your three sizes, right? Small, medium, large, 3.5, 3 5/8, and then 4 inch. So kind of really, really nice. If you like a bug out, you'll like the Neon, and if you like, you know, large Sebenza, you like this. But honestly, the Quantum or the F95 is also a really, really good carryable size, just because it's actually a really thin knife. And they make a bunch of different versions of the Quantum. Everything from the plastic front, well, maybe I'll show you a couple of them. The plastic Quantium front, a bunch of different versions of the Ursus meaning machine ground. I just showed you the Monkey Edge, but the standard Quantum would be like your Ursus, you know, multi-row bearings. They do a bunch of different colors as that, and then once we kind of go up from there, we go into the F95s, which I don't know if I have any production F95s that are at my side, but I do have a carbon front version of one for reference, which is called a Hattie, which is literally a carbon versioned F95. This one is a CCKS 2022 knife, I believe. So cool backspacer on it, S90V. These are, I always use my personal collection knives to show comparisons because I can't open up the other ones. So anyway, in terms of this Stellar Bronze, well, who's this for? Well, I will show you a comparison with a standard Stellar, which I do have in my case somewhere beside me if I can find it. There it is. This is the one I've been using in all my comparison videos, and I just want to illustrate the differences in color. That's all we're literally looking at. So when you hear bronze, you think it's like a deep, rich, dark kind of color. It's really not. It's actually very subtle. So if you like a little bit of a yellowy gold color to it, it hits that, right? But it's not super dark. You just kind of get some notes of kind of some gold colors around the edges, particularly around the milling and whatnot. So very subtle, very unique as well, right? Not a whole lot of difference between the standard tie and the bronze. It's just a little darker, a little more kind of, I'd say like patinaed look to it. So I'm not going to go into a ton of comparison. I just wanted to show you this knife, kind of talk about it. Look at that gorgeous milling that's all over the place. And I did a video on the blue already, and the blue had, geez, I think I had all three at the time when I had the blue. So there should be a video up of all three comparison if you want to watch the Stellar Blue video. Very similar. It's obviously the same knife, same M390, just with some blue anodizing to it. I have a prediction because I feel like they're starting to do a lot more of the anodizing colors, and they seem to come in threes. So I'm kind of wondering if they're going to do one more. I just don't know what that one would be. Maybe purple? I could see that. But anyway, in terms of the knife, it's an M390 Stellar, so really, really nice fit in hand. For reference, I have an extra large glove hand, and you know, this guy fits beautifully in my hand, and I've got obviously another full finger's width. If I had to grow a finger, I could hold this puppy no problem. The blade, M390, I love the little cutout on top there. It kind of looks to me like almost like a fighter jet, you know, like a Top Gun knife. It looks cool. Just really comfortable, obviously. Just an all-arounder. You know, flat grind on the top, no jimping, right? And as you know, a couple guys always say, if the knife fits well, you don't need jimping there, and it's very comfortable. But you know, even though the blade's kind of pinched on the top here, as you can kind of see, you know, it's quite easy to kind of choke up and go down because it does have that flat top. There's no additional expansion in the tip. That's what she said, for support, but it's just a nice, beautiful kind of overall drop point design. Really nice. The pivots, I believe, are titanium, and they require Shirogorov's tool, right? And I'm going to close that blade so I don't cut myself. So they require Shirogorov's tool, which is basically a flathead screwdriver, which you can see 1, 2, and then there'll be another one, I believe, underneath the clip that goes up into the frame, and then the actual pocket clip is attached with the same screw inside, from the inside out, just to kind of make it nice and beautiful. Do you need the Shirogorov tool? Not really. On a knife like this, you know, you're into that $1,000+ territory. I would suggest if you're willing to invest that kind of money in a knife, then maybe you should have the tool. Can you get away with like a penny? Yep, you can, or a folded credit card, but I obviously recommend the Shirogorov tool. And there's a bunch of varying configurations. You can get the Cyber tool. I personally use the Custom Division tool just because it has an inverse bit that you need on some of their other custom knives and special editions, and just because I have a couple of those guys here, I will show you what I'm talking about real quick. There we go. There's a couple on this Russian Overkill. That's the reverse bit that I'm talking about versus the standard, well, be on this side, standard bit on this guy. It's just flipped around, so pretty simple. And a lot of their Custom Division knives will have that reverse bit, which is kind of annoying because they don't make a ton of those tools, so sometimes finding those bits are a bit of a pain, but hey, you get rewarded with a pretty special, cool tool. Anyway, back on pace here, back on track. So jimping on the actual flipper tab, quite nice, nothing too crazy, but you know, there is some jimping up top. It's very light because it is a smaller blade, as well as it's on multi-row bearings, MRBS, which is written on the inside, I believe. I don't know if it's on this side and we're looking at it, or if it's on this side up front, or if it's not there at all. Am I blind? Oh no, these are on the front, I think. On the inside up here, I think. Is that where I'm looking? Yep. MRBS, so it is inside there. It's hiding on me. Usually, yeah, you can see it right here. MRBS and multi-row bearings for Shirogorov. They are essentially, instead of a standard track like this, their single row bearings would be what you would think in a circle. Their multi-row bearings are essentially 3, or actually I should say some knives are 2 in a row, but mostly 3 bearings in a row in a pinwheel pattern. And what that does is it doesn't really make it any smoother, although that's debatable online. It adds a lot of side-to-side stability to the actual knife, because it increases kind of the overall leverage of the blade contact. But it's just ridiculously smooth all around. It's never a bad thing. They still offer some knives in single row bearings, as I mentioned earlier. I had a couple of them here, and I think that Monkey Edge, this guy was one of my first Shiros I ever got, and this guy's actually single row bearing and silky smooth, typically reserved for kind of their entry level knives, but I love that knife beyond belief. It's so good. And I think now they're actually either coming out with or have come out with another Monkey Edge frag in a lefty as well. That is standard now in multi-row bearings. I don't know if the price went up on it or not, but I'll have to see if I can grab a pair of those and do another comparison, because that'd be a cool one to track down. But they go quickly. Everyone loves the frag pattern. So on this guy, obviously we've got some nice cool bronze color. I find that in the milling itself, kind of up here and down here, you get these little hot spots of some bronze that kind of pop through. These gold spots. I don't know if the camera is going to really show it, but it certainly does in natural light. Pops out real nice. The back spacer as well, real nice. Nice and smooth. It's got like a stonewash kind of finish to it. And then my favorite spot on the knife would probably be the clip on this, because you kind of get some really extensive milling. And if you're watching in 4K, I hope you can kind of see the milling on this clip, because it is so precise, so small. It's just a thing of beauty. And then beyond that, underneath the clip, you have a bunch of more horizontal milling that's just incredible. And then the beauty of the whole system, like I mentioned earlier, is it's attached internally, which you can't even argue with that. As I rotate the knife back up here, you'll see more milling that goes kind of horizontally over top of that little blank pivot on the back there. Beautifully done. And a little fun fact, a lot of the original shots when they launched the Stellar was actually this location right here, because, I should say right here, between these kind of internally concave milling points and this horizontal milling right here, because it makes for a really cool macro shot where the two meet. Really cool. Aside from it being on multi-row bearing, so it's super smooth and comfortable, you know, they are hand ground, so the blade itself tends to vary in length to this little poke out here. See, this guy's really tight. This is a tolerance level that you don't really see in a lot of other knives on the market at this specific price point. Certainly not in, you know, Hinders and Chris Reeves and stuff. It's just at a whole different level. It is a liner lock, or I guess an apron lock style knife. And once again, gorgeous milling all throughout, especially on the lock. It's just so beautiful in person and very difficult to see, I assume, on camera. I don't know if you're going to get a bunch of rebounds on the light, but it's a thing of absolute beauty in person. It's all skeletonized as well, and hopefully you can see inside some of those big, thick, beefy pockets that are taken out on the inside of this. I'll grab a light and show you. You can kind of see inside a little bit. they're as gorgeous inside. In a lot of cases, they're more gorgeous internally than they are externally, which it makes it fun to own one and take it apart and play with it. They're very easy as well to take apart. Some people get really scared of them, but I believe the Stellar is one of them where it's kind of like you almost build them in a stack and then put it together, so you don't need to actually pinch anything together. It's just beautifully done. Very, very nicely done. Oh, this fits the hand so well. You know, on some of the older production knives, or I guess even on some of the latest ones, they're still putting the Shirogorov bear on the blade. And I always say this in my videos. I go, I love when they take it off the blade and they put it down on the handle. Why, would you ask? Well, it's pretty simple. Because it'd be in the way of the cutting path. And if you're going to use it, which a lot of people do, a lot of people have been actually asking about, do you use these knives? Like me personally, no. I'm a loser that way. But for the people who do use, and I have a lot of friends who hard use everything from production right up to custom vision, right through to the full customs, having the bear on the blade is a bit of a not the best thing. So how do they fix it? They put it on the handle and it'll be there for years. But they still write M390, S90V, S110, S125, whatever. They still seem to write that on the blade, which is kind of their signature location, which is cool. My preference would be to write it inside there, which they've done on a couple of the knives, but not this particular one. So very, very cool. So I've talked obviously about how it fits the hand beautifully. I talked about how you can kind of choke up on it nicely. It's a good EDC size for someone just getting into the Shirogorov world because it's right in the sweet spot. But remember, an F95 is Shirogorov's large Sebenza. That's their original best-selling knife. So, I always recommend, depending on your hand size, if you're like a medium large, go Stellar. If you're large, extra large, go F95. And if you're medium or less, try a Neon. And obviously your personal preference all depends on what you like. But for me, Stellar's a no-brainer. It's just such a nice, good size. And you kind of get a taste of the bearing system, the workmanship, etc. I guess the big drawback on this design, is the lanyard hole, and how some people look at that and they complain. They go, oh, I see through the knife. Whereas on some of the other knives, they actually build it into the back spacer, like on this custom division knife, where from the side, there's no hole, right? But from the top, there's your lanyard hole. It's worked into the back spacer, totally accessible. It just doesn't show it. Personally, I don't really care. I love the way this guy looks. And the Stellar has quickly become a fan favorite amongst the entire lineup with a number of different models, just because it's really good size. So what I would like to personally see is, when are they going to make a Neon with this locking style? That would be an interesting combination. Because, they just did the 111, the Starship, Battle Starship? Yeah, Starship. With the liner, they've done a bunch of other knives with it. Then the Mini Quantum with it. It's like, man, why don't they do a Neon? Maybe they will. And conversely, I'm curious if they're ever going to do the Stellaris in production. For those who don't know, the Stellaris is a carbon front scaled version of this knife, much like the Hattie to the F95. Just to kind of lighten things up. Actually, I believe on the Stellaris, I'm trying to remember. Yeah, no, the whole thing's carbon. What am I talking about? It's not a frame lock. So the whole thing's carbon. So I'm wondering when that's coming, if it's coming. Oh my god! Just listen to that, hey. It's so crisp and smooth. Just a beautiful knife. The bronze. If I'm buying one of these knives, no questions, I go plain Jane tie, because it's timeless. Blue looks really, really hot too, but the bronze is just very subtly different than the plain Jane tie. It just adds a little, like I said, little patina to it, but it still kind of holds the roots of it being plain Jane. And without having both beside each other, you don't really notice it, right? Like it's just a little bit different. See what I'm saying? And in natural light, because remember, I've got a 3-foot big lamp over top of me here. In natural light, you know, it's subtle, but you do notice it. It's just like a little darker, a little browner. It's not loud. You know, when you go to the blue, it's very obvious. And it's very loud. It's very different. I shouldn't say loud. It's just very different. But bronze, it's subtle. It's kind of a one size fits all, right? Beautiful knife. I wonder if they're ever going to do, I guess, like, bring the same design down to a different price point, like an entry level, like Chromax instead of M390. You know, maybe they take off the milling. Maybe they don't skeletonize the internals. I wonder if they would ever do that. It seems like there's enough demand if they're making now, what, 1, 2, 3 different versions of it. And reminder, the original production was called the first production, and it was a blue. Not a stonewash blue, but a blue. And it had an S90V blade on it, which was kind of unique at the time. Everything since has been M390 as far as I am aware, other than, you know, the Sprint Run or the Custom Division, which preceded these anyway. This knife as well, it came with, what's it called, an apron, I think? So it's a spacer inside that kind of spaces the lock bar, and then it's a pin that you move around when you put it back together, but it essentially makes it flawless when you space it. And these guys do have that technology, the captive pivot system. It's just stunning. It's got all the modern details that you'd expect. And then the action, you know, I always talk about this as like a good knife, you should be able to park it anywhere along the line and it shouldn't drop. But with a little bump, it just floats. And that's what Shirogorov does. Whereas like you take a Grimsmo, you do that and it flops down, because it doesn't really have controlled drop shuttiness. I guess one of the things people complain about with this design as well is the backspacer and how it doesn't kind of come all the way up. There's a bit of a gap there, but they do that on all the models. There's no backspace that comes all the way up or bridges that gap. I assume that little gap has more to do with production than anything else. But everything about it, like even the flipper tab, you look behind it, the bevels for when you flip it open, and how your finger kind of flops down in that little spot there. It's just nice. Everything's just thought about so well. The tolerances are through the roof. Everything's tight, smooth as silk, and robust. You can use this if you want. They're not individually numbered like Sprint Runs. But they do come with a box and COA, and the box and the COA they'll have matching serial numbers that do match, but they're not individually stamped. With that inside, there is a serial number inside that is a Shirogorov number. That is not a box COA number. But yeah, something to think about. But just a gorgeous, gorgeous knife. So that is it for me, guys. I just wanted to do a quick video on this one. In between periods, and I just wanted to get this filmed. But you know, my goal here is any knife that comes into the store, I would love to do a video on at some point and at least archive it, and then that way I can release it accordingly every couple weeks or whatever. Shirogorov video. But it's always good to see the later models. They're just hard to push out because sometimes they launch 2, 3, 4 at a time and you can't keep up on the normal schedule. But that is the Stellar Bronze in M390. Super cool knife, an absolute stunner that anyone would be lucky to have. And they are available now. I've got a stack of them here in the store, ready to go whenever you are. So drop me a line, add me on Instagram, TikTok, whatever, or just shoot me an email and chat. Like anytime, guys. Everything's in stock in Canada, ready to go. All right, guys, have yourself a great week, and we will talk soon. Peace.